Good morning. Today is 21 June, the year 2013. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in Palm Springs, California. As part of the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in our country's military conflicts, especially World War II. Today, I'm here at the museum and have the honor and the privilege of interviewing Staff Sergeant Ed Tunison. Sergeant Tunison was a C-47 radio operator in Europe during World War II, participating in the Normandy invasion and the relief of Bastogne, among others. So we're going to talk to him about that and a lot of other things. Nice to have you here, Ed. Now, prior to the invasion, did you go on any missions at all?
All kinds of them. Well, not in. We did a lot of flying, but we did
more practice.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of practice there. We had a lot of problems trying to put things together.
And you were towing gliders?
We were towing gliders. Yes, at that time we were towing I forget the number of the gliders. A small glider. Then we were towing horse gliders, the big ones that would load up with equipment. And then we took some gliders off on the fly. And that was quite interesting.
By that, you mean while you were flying, yeah, there was like a wire or something across, and you would, yeah.
But we towed our gliders. We towed gliders in Arnhem, first ones across the Rhine. And what I remember that day was it was a ground fog. We were flying very low. Of course, we flew very low when we hauled the 82nd Airborne or any other airborne to get them down in a hurry. But I remember the Germans shooting at us from one side of the Rhine, and it must have been the Limeys on the other side playing soccer. As we broke down through the ground fog, and then we let the gliders loose.
That was at Arnhem?
That was at Arnhem.
A bridge too far?
Yeah, 18th of September.
I think Bob mentioned to you we were over in Arnhem a few years ago.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
When we were, I think you asked me if we had any other missions after, but not until after the invasion.
Oh, not until after. Okay. Well, we're still talking about prior to the invasion. So you're doing a lot of training, flying and stuff. Flying with other C-47s,
yes,
and picking up gliders and stuff like that.
Yes, we were, and dropping troopers.
Yeah.
And also English troopers. And they had hobnail boots, and they used to jump from the other side like they drive on their streets. And they slip all over the place. And I don't know if they jumped from, like our boys usually jump in sticks of 6 or 8 or whatever. They all had equipment. They had to be pretty close together.
Yeah.
They could. But these guys, they'd load up with tea. The tea trucks would come around, and they'd get sick. It was a mess.
Any mishaps, any accidents
during the training?
Yeah.
Yes, we were landing. I remember one in particular that unnerved me a little bit. We were landing on a field, and I don't know where it was, and a group, maybe 8 or 10 of us, 10 ships. And it was a muddy area. And the ships ahead of us, one was trying to stop, the other one was trying to avoid them. And the prop came down across the cockpit and cut off the pilot's legs. And so they got him out, and the medics were there, and he was okay for a few minutes, and he looked down and saw the blanket over his legs, and he just left us at that time. Now that's a terrible thing. I haven't even gotten into the invasion yet. And there are a lot of times in practice, everybody was new at this thing, as you know, and the pilots were new, And our pilot let us, the whole crew, at times, he let us fly the plane in case anything happened. Against regulations, but I mean, we could. And I did, and so did my crew chief, of course, the other fellows. But we had lots of things happen where a guy, it was just ridiculous that they had to train these fellows so quick. They didn't know what to do. I don't think they could drive cars, let alone airplanes.
Was there a little town close by the base?
There was a little town close by, Aldermaston, I think.
Did you Did you get into the town, or did you get to meet any of the?
Well, what we
various
did
people?
mostly, we used to take a plane and fly to London for coffee and donuts. and one time we flew to London, and we got smashed pretty good, and pretty inebriated, and the buzz bombs came over, and so we had to take cover, but we really didn't care because we were drunk, and then we had to take before the base commander let us off. We had to take an exam. We had to pull the strings, and we didn't do very good. And one of the fellows with us, he was the worst. He was in worse shape than anybody. And he pulled him up, and then he said, "Wait." He stumbled back. All of a sudden, he got him right on line. That was the funniest thing I ever saw. Anyway, we got back to base and on that trip, and we got a little talking too. But we had a lot of flying around get flying time in and to get our flight pay.
Did you know that you were preparing for the invasion?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the weirdest thing was they gave us, of course, we kept our dog tags. I wish I still had my dog tags. They kept the dog tags, and they gave us a little picture, and I was with black hair, and I was supposed to be a Frenchman, I guess. It was ridiculous. That's all we had with us.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, here's that picture, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, that's familiar.
Yeah, let you hold that. Yeah. So you got your C-47, and that's your glider behind you, and so it would. Let's kind of show me a little bit about how would it be attached and stuff.
Pardon?
How would the glider be attached? How would you pick it up? How's it attached?
With a tow rope.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
One.
Yes.
One rope. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when it released, did you release it, or did it?
It all depends. If we wanted it released, if there was problems, we'd release them. But they could release themselves.
When they're ready to go, yeah.
But as far as I remember, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I think most of the time we released them.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
So it's a twin engine, your
Yeah.
C-47, yeah. Uh-huh. And radio operator, you'd be about halfway back.
About halfway back.
Yeah.
You want me to hold that?
No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Halfway back, and navigator was on the other side of me.
Yeah.
And I usually got up and stood behind the pilot and the co-pilot if I could.
Any armament at all?
Excuse me?
Any armament at all?
Well, the only thing we had was flak suits and flak helmets.
But no guns?
All we carried was sidearms and carbines.
But I mean, there were no machine guns in the wings or anything like that?
No, I wish we had, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We used to shoot out the doors. Doors were open,
Oh,
But I don't think I ever hit anybody.
You would be shooting at something on the ground, basically?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We were flying low.
Low, yeah. Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And we'd have to pull the throttle lines back in. And it was a noisy thing. I think when we landed, the second we went over, pulling a lot of gasoline, and I could see Patton's group flew far ahead already. I remember seeing I think it was the USS Texas off the shore I'm not sure that it was, but I think it was a big ship shooting salvos into the mainland. We had a lot of aircraft flying around on the invasion. A lot of P-47s, I think.
Yeah, they were. Okay, yeah, let's go back to, let's say, the night. But now the invasion, I think, was called off the first day.
Yes, it
Supposed
was.
to have been on the 5th. Do you remember? Tell me about that. What you
Well,
remember.
incidentally, we were all in a internment area with the 82nd Airborne, and these guys were so revved up, I think they could shoot their mothers.
That's Gavin's group. Gavin was the head of the 82nd, I think. Yeah.
This is 70-some years ago, and
so you were going to be carrying paratroopers.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was about 3 or 3:30 in the morning when we, if I remember right, when we took off to drop the troopers. And I know there was flame arrestor on some of the ships, so you couldn't see them from the ground. And a lot of small arms and some flak. And I remember one plane blowing up near us. But anyway, there's a lot of racket, and these guys are glad to get out of our plane.
Yeah, that's what I've interviewed paratroopers too. And that was at Normandy, and he said we were glad to get out of that plane.
They were. They hooked on, and away they go.
Yeah, and where was their objective?
This was in Normandy at.
Was it Utah Beach, or?
I can't remember. I have it I think on my map at home.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was.
Was it a little village or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little area.
Yeah. And
But some of them, I guess, got caught in the trees and shot before they got down, and it was bad news.
I guess some of them landed in. There was some hidden water lakes or whatever you might call them that they landed into.
Felt for them. Yeah. But they wanted to get out of our plane. They didn't want to
Do you know what happened to the guys that were in your plane at all?
No,
Have any idea?
No.
So when you dropped them, then what?
Well, then we got out of there because there was a lot of fire flying around and a lot of shooting, and we went back. We got back all right, and but not long afterwards we loaded up again and came in and dropped. We had to bring gasoline back. That I was kind of worried about.
Now, by that time, was it still dark? Or
it was light.
It was light then, but the first time it was dark.
Dark.
Okay.
Yeah. It was dark.
Do you drop the gasoline in the same general area?
I don't know if it was the same area or not. It wasn't far from there, but I do remember that we saw from the air, we saw Patton in there going forward.
It's like he always does, right?
Yeah. But we did see some, we had awful good air cover. 47s, 51s.
And you all had the white stripes painted on
We
the
helped
wings.
paint those on.
Did you?
On the wings and everything, yeah.
And as I understand it, the reason for that was, I think the first in Sicily, or the first time they had like an invasion, like with airdrop, we got some of our planes were shot down by friendly fire.
Right.
And it was to let the guys and the ships and
Well,
stuff.
it was identification of some sort, it had to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So it must have worked, because I don't think there was much of that going on. Yeah.
Anyway,
So after so the next few days, were you flying missions pretty much every day then, or what?
No, they kept us quiet and gave us whiskey.
Now this was by the time these guys were fighting in the hedgerows and the stuff, like they're fighting in the hedgerows and stuff.
Right.
Hadn't really made a lot of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your next major missions would have been about when or where?
Not too long from then. We dropped some other troopers, and I can't remember where. Of course, Bastogne became involved, and our group got involved in that. But the weather was so bad, we couldn't help those guys out right away. And I don't remember just what dates they were, but we dropped supplies to those fellows.
Right. Did you drop them right in Bastogne or right around?
Yeah, right. As far as I know, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, we were at Bastogne also in that trip that we went on.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a terrible thing. The whole thing was terrible. But we did a lot of things in the service that we hadn't expected we would do, and we were confronted with some nasty situations, but nothing like the poor devils that hit the beach.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
And it should never have happened. But it happened.
Yeah.
Now, we did go over on a weather ship afterwards, my crew. What we did was report the weather back to the mainland because we were still sending equipment and sorties back over to France.
Mm-hmm.
And we were a ship that was assigned to that, I remember. And my crew chief and I, this is kind of something I don't know if you'll report it or not. We camouflaged. We landed on I don't know what kind of a runway, whether it was corrugated or what, but a 47 will land and take off in a short distance. Mm-hmm. And near Orléans, France, like New Orleans, and the Germans had just left. So my crew chief and I were walking out around it after we landed, and I don't know where the pilot and co-pilot and the navigator were. I don't even think we carried a navigator then. And we heard a little girl holler, "Hi, Yanks." And the town looked like Tijuana. It was all beat up. And she was waving from across the street. We waved at her. She waved us over. So we weren't about to sleep on that airplane at night on the seats and eat C rations, K rations. So we went over there and they opened up the door and red carpeting, perfume, all these young girls in there. And my crew chief said they had played a couple tunes on the piano. So I played the piano and I thought I died and went to heaven.
When did you learn to play the piano?
Oh, when I was a young boy. And I've had a problem now. I don't hear out of this ear. I have a service problem there. And this year I only have about 75%, maybe not that now, because the last few weeks I had some terrible noises in my ear and I'm being treated for that. And I play by ear, I don't play by music. And my wife bought me a beautiful piano years ago, and I played the piano down through the years since I was a little boy. And I enjoy it. But I don't know, if I can't hear stuff now, it sounds tinny to me. So I hope that can be cured.
Yeah. Well, that was quite an evening, huh?
Yeah. Well, we were there for about 4 days.
Oh, you were?
I thought, geez, I died and went to heaven.
Yeah. So when you got up into Bastogne, the weather had started to clear, but as I recall, the problem was that we couldn't get planes in the air for the first 4 or 5 days. I guess when the Germans overran us. It was really cold. Where were you flying from at that point?
From England.
Still from England, same base. Did you fly out of that same base all during the war?
There were 2 or 3 bases, but I remember Aldermaston as the main base that we had.
But you never had bases across the channel?
Yeah, we did, and I for the life of me, I can't tell you where they were.
Yeah.
I know we took off from some fields there somewhere, but I can't remember.
Okay, so then, like I say, you were at Arnhem. You were
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we didn't land there.
right. I know, but I mean,
Yeah.
you were.
Yeah.
What did you drop there?
We dropped gliders.
Gliders. Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We dropped gliders, and we just came down through the ground fog, and there's where our drop zone was, and DZ was there, and those guys let loose. And I don't know whether we let them loose or they let loose, but the Germans are on the other side, and I remember.
Yeah.
That's the first time we were across the Rhine, I think.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then after that, did you go across the Rhine into Germany much?
I
After
didn't.
that?
We didn't. I never did.
Yeah.
No.
Was that?
So we went to Paris, and we went to Luxembourg, and you know,
missions there? You mean, or
we
what?
had a mission in Paris near Luxembourg, I think, one time. I can't recall. Just when. But we landed in lots of areas in Germany at times, and we've seen a lot of Germans with their hands behind their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, we hauled a lot of wounded back. We did a lot of that. We hauled wounded and even Germans. I remember talking to a German in the plane, and he showed me a picture of his family in California or someplace it was.
Did he speak English?
Yeah. They didn't want to be there anymore, and we did.
So how many missions or sorties or whatever you might want to call them, do you have any idea?
God,
how
I
many
know. I
times?
know I had over 2,000 hours in a DC-3. Quite a few hours.
Do you remember VE Day?
Yes. Everybody was shooting that through the tents and everything else. Jeez, they're crazy. It was worse than the invasion. Anyway, a lot of that stuff is, you know, when you're a young man, 19, 20 years old, you can endure a lot of things. But I think I'm smarter than to do that anymore.
And I guess well, for you guys as well as for the B-17 guys and B-24s, going up just about every day, and every time you go up, you know you might not come back.
Well,
I guess you have to be pretty young to.
Well, you know, that's something to think about. If you think about it, you probably didn't want to do it. So,